It's great to be back to the SLS Sportscast. I know you guys missed me, and I'm back as requested with my favorite panel here in the background. You can't see him, but I see him. I appreciate the invite as usual. So I am going to carry on with my spiel, is what I like to call it. So last week we talked about Tyreek versus Randy Moss, based on a statement that Randy Moss made.
Yes, Tyreek Hill is in any race.
In my prime, I would have lit Tyreek up.
That he was the NFL. Well, if he was in the NFL today, or Tyreek was in the NFL then, he would have burnt him. He would have lit him up, is what he said, word for word. So I went through some data. Some of you thought it was subjective, so I was rambling off some data. I got objective data today. Okay, so I'm going to continue this conversation. But what does it say above me? NFL fastest men, or NFL's fastest men. And I'm going to go through a couple lists that I have here. I pulled off the internet because it verifies a lot of the data I was giving last week. The times may have not been exact, but the times will be exact today, as you requested. So on this list, I'm looking at twinspiresedge.com. It has a top 10 NFL's fastest men, okay? There's one constant you're going to realize as I go through these two lists. Then I'm going to give forth a couple of honorable mentions I feel need to be mentioned that weren't mentioned on these lists. But we'll go through that. So the list starts number 10. One of my favorite players, if not my favorite player, Deion Sanders. And Deion Sanders was clocked at a 4.27 at the 1989 NFL Combine. You can look that up. Type it in, okay, guys? And I gave you some numbers last week. I gave you names. All you have to do is type it in. World Wide Web. It's pretty simple this day and age. But I will hold your hand and I will walk you across the street. Okay. So 40-yard dash, 4.27. That's automatic, right? I told you last week he did it in street clothes and sneakers, right? He just came off the limousine. Went out there, lined up on the line, ran right through the tunnel and ran back into the limousine. That's Deion. That's prime time. So, with that being said, he unofficially ran a 4.21. He ran that outside. Wind resistance, guys, 4.21. Now, how accurate was it? AccuTrack, we don't know, right? So I'm just gonna go off the 4.27, which is pretty darn good. Okay. So he also ran a couple collegiate meets, as I found out, and he ran a 10.21 automatic time, which is amazingly fast. Now, a lot of this data was given to me by a good old friend of mine, a mentor, a friend, ex-teammate, Tyrone Miner. We call him Chisel. You can check him out on Instagram. His handle is Insta Chisel, and he has a lot of great workouts. If you're looking for a trainer or any exercise advice, he's the man. He's what we call the GOAT. Okay. So we going through number 10. We have Deion Sanders here. Thank you, Mr. Miner, for this data that you've put in my hands, right? Made it a lot easier for me to go through it with you. Dale Green, number 9, one of my favorite players, right? We know Dale Green ran Division II track and field at his alma mater. He was clocked, he ran a 4.43 automatic. At the age of 50, 4.43. Remember, I told you he went 4.3 when he was in his 40s? He went 4.43 as a 50-year-old. I want you to think about that. Randy Moss didn't even run that fast. In his prime, right? We're talking about NFL's fastest men. You see my backdrop up there. Yep. Oh, what does it say here? He ran a 4.09 during training camp in 1986. Oh, you remember I was supposed to continue this conversation. Whose athletes were better? Today's athletes or yesterday's athletes? And I told you, without a doubt, yesterday's athletes are better. Who's a better running back than Barry Sanders? I'll wait. Who's a better cornerback than Deion Sanders or Rod Woodson or Dale Green? I'll wait. Who's a better athlete than Bo Jackson? Herschel Walker? I'm still waiting. These athletes today can't compete with these athletes of old. And we're just talking NFL. Don't let me get started on the NBA or boxing when it's at its golden era back in the 80s, right? Or in the 70s. Maybe that was the golden era. We can argue about that. Are the athletes today better than the athletes of yesterday? We'll talk about that next week. So, well, let me continue my list. We went through Dale Green. He went 409. We know he went 10-1 in the 100, right? Oh, actually, I'm sorry. He went 10.08 according to the data here. That's world class. That might be faster than Tyreek Hill. Let's go through this list. Fabian Washington. I don't know who this guy is, but he played for 5 years in the NFL. But it has him here at a 4.29 in high school, automatic. High school track star out of Washington, 4.29, 40-yard dash, 4.25 at the NFL Combine. He split at 1.5 in a 10-yard split. That's pretty darn good. Ronaldo Nehemiah. Oh, yeah, this is back in the 80s. Ronaldo Nehemiah was extremely fast. Don't have any times here for Ronaldo Nehemiah. I have some hurdle times, which are extremely great. Oh, world record, 12.93. Oh, he's fast. 110-meter hurdles, 12.93. That's pretty damn fast. Excuse my language. So let's continue the list. Number 6, John Ross. He's pretty recent. He's playing in the league today. He plays with the Cincinnati Bengals. You might have seen him at the Super Bowl. He ran 4.22 at the NFL Combine. Fastest time ever recorded at the NFL Combine, 4.22. That's pretty darn fast. John Ross, he's playing today. Tyreek Hill, that's my guy, number 5, right? 4.29, 40-yard dash time. Let's talk about his track times. Does it have anything on track times? Well, I went through that last week. I think he went 10-0. He might have went 9-9 wind dated, 10-0. Fast. Blistering fast. Then we have a guy named Dre Archer. Played 1 year in the NFL, Pittsburgh Steelers. He ran a 4.26 in the 40-yard dash. Pretty darn fast. One of the fastest times of all time in the 40-yard dash at the Combine. Of course, you guys remember Chris Johnson, amazing football player. But one other skill set that he had, he was amazingly fast, 4.24. Johnson believes he ran a 4.18 at the Combine. And many have put his run side by side with that of John Ross. And it does appear Johnson was a step ahead at the end. 2 extremely fast guys around the same time. Bo Jackson. Oh my gosh, where do I even begin with Bo Jackson? Bo Jackson was clocked at a 4.13, fastest verified NFL workout run ever. That's automatic. Bo Jackson was pushing 220 pounds, benching 500 pounds, and was running that fast. I want you to think about that. I was pretty darn fast. I ran those times. I was 175 pounds, 180 pounds. This guy's 220 pounds, pretty much running the same times. That's pretty darn fast and very respectable. Highly respected. They also have him at a 4.12, 4.13. I mean, he's 4-1 all day long. It's looking like Bo Jackson. And number 1 on this list, we have Bob Hayes, Bullet Bob Hayes. He set the world record in the 100-meter dash in the 60s, right? Athletes are better today, aren't they? Yeah. Why aren't they this fast anymore? All these players I'm giving on this list are from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Only a couple today, right? So 10.06 in the 100-meter dash, 9.1 in the 100-yard dash. 100-yard dash is pretty much the equivalent of 110. 100-yard dash is the equivalent of 110. No, my bad. 110 yards is equivalent to 100 meters, right? So if I list off a 55-meter dash time to you guys today, or 60-meter dash time, or a 55-yard dash time, 55 yards is 60 meters. 60 meters is 55 yards, right? No, I'm sorry. I'm confusing myself. Meters are longer than yards. 60 yards is 55 meters. There you go. You got it, Cress. Wake up. So that's the first list I want to go over. Now, this next list is off NBC Sports. You guys type this in. NFL's fastest men. All time. Has right here number 1, Jim Hines. I'm not familiar with this guy, but this is why. 1968, Jim Hines was clocked at a 10 flat. Pretty darn fast. We got Trendon Holiday. I remember him. He played with the Denver Broncos. He placed second at the 2007 USATF Outdoor Championships right behind Tyson Gay. he was a specialist player in the NFL. I don't know if you guys remember watching him. There was a kick returner, punt returner. He was only 5'5". You can't miss him, but he was fast. And I remember a couple of those touchdowns that he brought back. So he was running low tens. Doesn't have an exact time here, but he's right behind Tyson Gay, guys. He's 10 flat at least. Then you have Jeff Demps and Jacoby Ford. They both were clocked at a 10.01. Oh yeah, Trindon Holly 10.00. That's what it has listed here. Those are automatic times. Then has Jeff Demps and Jacoby Ford. That's in 2008, 2009, 10.01. Bob Hayes, we already went through that list, 10.06. Oh, Ron Brown, 1983. Ron Brown, 10.06. Both of them ran pretty fast.
Hey, don't forget about Elvis Whitted, ran at 10.02.
Elvis Whitted is next on my list, number 7 here, 10.07. My brother eerily gave me a 10.02. That may be true, maybe not. Maybe wind dated. I don't know.
First thing that pops up.
But Elvis Whitted was extremely fast too. I remember him. He ran 1996 Olympic trials with Michael Johnson. You know, the great Michael Johnson, 1996 Olympics when he broke the world record in the 200-meter dash and the 400-meter dash. Then we have Dale Green, of course. We went through that, 10.08. Then we have Sam Grady, LA Raiders. Sam Grady was a 1984 Olympic 100-meter special silver medalist behind Carl Lewis, the great Carl Lewis, right? I think Carl Lewis's greatest time, 9.86, I believe. His teammate, Leroy Burrell, 9.85. You can check that out. I think that's correct. But Sam Grady, they have him here, 1984, 10.09. Extremely fast. And number 10, the top off the list, Willie Gault, 10.10, 1982. And Willie Gault also qualified for the 1980 Olympics as part of the 4x100 relay pool. But the U.S. boycotted Moscow in 1980, so he wasn't able to compete. So that's what I want to use as my template here of NFL's fastest men. Okay, this list, one thing you probably may not have noticed, Tyreek Hill's not on this list. He should be because he ran faster than 10.1, but I don't know how old this article is, you know. But Randy Moss wasn't on either list. Is it because he didn't ever post a time? Well, you can't be the greatest dunker if you didn't compete in a dunk contest, right? Sorry, LeBron. So let's continue on this honorable mention list. Michael Bates, I think we talked about him. Alan Rossum. Alan Rossum's a very interesting character. He ran in he was a cornerback and a return specialist. Crazy times here I have for Rossum. He went 10.02 in high school. Man, 10.02 in high school. Come on, guys. I know I'm just throwing a bunch of numbers out there, but you got to understand. I want you to put these numbers in perspective. And if you can't, I want you to go outside, go to a track, run 100 meters as fast as you can, and watch it come up probably slower than 12 seconds because you're probably pretty slow, right? These guys are running 9s and 10s, man. This is a different level of speed here. And it's hard to fathom it because I'm giving you objective data. And people like to deal in the subjective. I don't deal with subjective. I deal with objective. Can you verify it? Can you prove it? I'm all about data and I'm all about facts. It has to be factual. We can sit here and talk about who's fast and he looked fast. You know, the quarterback for the Phoenix Cardinals, his name's not coming to my memory, but you guys know who he is currently. Yeah, Murray. He looks fast, but he's really not that fast. He's quick. But if you look at his times in the 40, what do you run a 4.5? But his legs are spinning real fast, but he's not covering much ground. That's one thing you have to watch when you're watching these runners. You got to watch how much ground they're covering, not if they're just blowing by runners, because you don't know how fast these guys are they're running against. You know, everybody looks fast when you're running against slow people. So who are they running with? So let's go through my honorable mention list. I'm talking about, I went through Rossum, right? 10.02 in high school. That's crazy. Then you have Michael Bennett. You guys remember Michael Bennett, all you Minnesota Vikings fans. Michael Bennett was pretty darn fast. Michael Bennett Randy Moss wasn't even the fastest on the Minnesota Vikings. You got Michael Bennett. He went 10.18 in Iowa City at a track meet. He also has a wind-aided 10 flat And he also went 20.6, and he ran a 6.67 in the indoor 60-meter dash. Michael Bennett is the fastest Minnesota Viking. Randy Moss, you might be second. I hope you're second if we're having this discussion, right? You think you're that fast. But you're not even faster than Michael Bennett. We went through these lists right here, but another one I want to talk about real quick. Herschel Walker. Man, oh man, let me see if I can find Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker went 6.11 in the 55-meter dash. 6.11. That's 60 yards. Think about that, you football players. 60 yards. This guy covered it pretty much in 6 seconds flat. The world record at that time was 6 flat. And he ran it in 6.11. He was just a hair off. And Herschel Walker was a big boy. He was pushing 230 pounds. You guys seen him. He's a specimen even to this day in his 50s. Or is he in his 60s now? Look that up. But Herschel Walker is extremely fast. And like one thing that sets those two apart, well, Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker, they were 220 plus pounds to move that kind of weight for that kind of speed. Like I said, I was running that kind of times, and I was 180 pounds, 170 pounds, 175. These are football players, man, running world-class type times. Raghib Ishmael, who my friend, Mr. Miner, Tyrone Miner, gave me the list of all these lists, these composite lists here. You can look up on the World Wide Web. Most of them on Wikipedia. Just type in their name. You'll see it. All their track times are on there, especially Rod Woodson. Ran at Purdue. Extremely, I didn't know he was that fast. Tyrone Miner had to remind me. Also about Herschel Walker, also about Raghib Ishmael, Notre Dame. If you ever seen him play, he was electric. And he ran, I think what, 6, where's his time at, man? I don't want to just, for all you complainers out there, I just want to throw out numbers. I want to make sure I'm explaining it correctly so you guys don't bust my chops, because you guys like to bust my chops. Oh, James Jett. Sorry, guys, I had to sidetrack. James Jett out of West Virginia. Randy Moss, you're not even the fastest in West Virginia. You weren't the fastest for the Minnesota Vikings, and you weren't the fastest in West Virginia because we have a guy named James Jett. And James Jett was an Olympian. James Jett ran 10.10 in the 100 meters and 19.9. Like I said, all you novice runners, go out there on the track, run 200 meters. I'll do something even better yet. Run 2 blocks. Go on the city street in the summertime. Run for 2 blocks and see how fast it comes up. I bet you'd be like 25 seconds. You guys are slow. These are real fast times. 19.9. 19 seconds to cover 200 meters. I want you to think about that. 6.12 in the 55 meters. He would have smoked me. And I have the NCAA record for Division III. He would have smoked me. 100 meters, 10:10. Amazing. James Jett, one of the fastest NFL players, if not the fastest. Who knows? But Raghib Ishmael, I think he went 6.07. I could be wrong. 6.07 in the 55. My friend, Tyrone Miner, raced him at Notre Dame and told me how fast he was. And Tyrone Miner he ran 6.19 in the 55, right? Wasn't at the same time. Obviously, I think he ran that time later in his career. But for him to remember how fast he was, Raghib Ishmael, when he got the ball at Notre Dame, I mean, it was pretty much a touchdown. You guys can look up the highlights. It was a touchdown. That's how fast he was. But I want to end off with this, guys. We're talking about these NFL crossover guys. Are they track athletes? Are they NFL guys? You know, it could go either way. But Usain Bolt, the great Usain Bolt, the fastest man that has ever lived, right? On paper. He was at some NFL event some years back, and I know you guys seen it because it hit the World Wide Web. It went viral. And he had on full attire, full clothes, sneakers on grass or turf, which is not that fast. Not like a synthetic surface like Mondo track, right? He went 4.22 in a 40-yard dash. Just fooling around, just playing around. 4.22 automatic in his street clothes. I couldn't do that in my best day. Not in street clothes. And It gets better yet. His world record time of 9.58 that he set in Germany. They, speed specialists, technicians, biomechanics, exercise physiologists, they broke this time down. In the first 40 yards of that 9.58 race, 3.9, automatic. And he's not even known as a starter, guys. Not like Christian Coleman. How fast would Christian Coleman run the 40-yard dash? Would have been the same, would have been faster. He has the world record right now, guys, in the 60-meter dash at 6.34 seconds. I don't know if anybody's ever going to break that. But they said last year at the Olympics, Bing Shin Su from China ran 3.9 to 4.0 when he ran his Chinese record time. He's an amazing starter as well. You know, I'm not going to continue on with that, but I just want you guys to understand NFL's fastest man. I gave you a list of 2, and I gave you some honorable mentions of guys that should be noted, and probably a couple guys I missed out on. Like I said, there's a lot of guys that ran in the combines that you never heard of because they're probably got cut. They weren't that good in football or whatever reason. Who knows? But there are some fast guys that come through those doors. Oh yeah, Harvin from the Minnesota Vikings. Was he faster than Randy Moss? That'd be a good. In my estimation, I think it would have been a great head-to-head race. Randy Moss may have got him on that one, but he does have great speed. So you weren't the fastest in Minnesota for the Vikings. You weren't the fastest from your state in West Virginia. And you're not faster than Tyreek Hill, Randy Moss. So I just want to just stamp it and let it be known that there's a lot of fast guys that come through the NFL, and there's a lot of fast guys in general that you may have never heard of. But especially, we even went through the top high school times. Talk about high school kids. They deserve some notoriety, right? So I enjoy being here. And like I said, next week I plan on going over yesterday's athletes versus today's athletes. Who were better? That's going to be the next point of contention or discussion. Guys, it's great to be here. See you next week.
Next week's topic, who's the more athletic Crest brother?